Alright, and welcome back. So we are here with Zansin versus YiQiao for TSDL Season 7. This is the round of 4. We have YiQiao on the left, Zansin on the right. Plains of Strife is going to be the map. And we already have our first ban, is a Lucretia ban. That's pretty typical from these boxes. Are these the exact same box? Not quite. There's a Himiko over here that I don't see in YiQiao. I actually don't see the Kyra. It's a bit of an odd one to drop. But very similar, I would say. Let's see, what else do we have? We have a Mariel on Zansin's side. That's pretty interesting. You don't see Mariel too often. As far as assassins go, she's unreliable, I would say. She's not the best. She can only assassinate once, which usually is not that amazing of a trait to have. We saw in the round of 8 game, I forget exactly who was playing, but we saw a Mariel that failed to kill a Werner. Now it was a Werner standing on a tree. Some things happened to the Mariel to make it go wrong, right? But still, it's not the most reliable of assassins, but the extra utility that she brings by being a healer sometimes can be helpful. We do see the Werner first pick for YiQiao. We see a Lucretia for Zansin, since the Lucretia did not get banned. Again, Lucretia just kind of one of the strongest units in the game. Make no mistake. However, picking Lucretia means that Zansin loses both of his tanks. Now, he does have Sissy, who can provide a Lancer as an off-tank, which is plenty effective against what YiQiao's running here with basically no magic damage, just the Lucretia for magic damage. So we do see Zansin picking up the Sissy, so now there is still tank options present, although, you know, Werner's already an assassin that doesn't care about your tank. Once Werner kills something, Wedum can potentially assassinate people. It's alright. You don't have the utility that a Christie or a Hilda bring via faction buff, via auras, but in exchange you get to bring an extra DPS. It's not a bad trade. So we will see what YiQiao bans here. YiQiao has plenty of tanks left on her side. Landius, Christie, Hilda, Bernhardt in a pinch. So I imagine we will see the Ares getting picked because there's just no reason picking that. Well, the Ares or the Bernhardt. Ares or Bernhardt would be the expected pick from YiQiao. We do have the Ares. Ares good here for handling the Elwyn very easily. Handles the Helena not as easily, but does a better job of it than Bernhardt would, very likely. Definitely has more mobility to go along with it. You can go AoE on the Ares and potentially threaten the Lucretia, maybe. Though you would probably need some chip on the Lucretia. Well, no, you would definitely need some chip on the Lucretia, because to threaten the Lucretia, you have to kill her with Wind Whisper. But if you can get, if you can get some damage on her, then you can kill her. Or you can take her first life with Ares, and then Wedum can come in and take the second life. That's also an option. So Ares is a very useful unit here, able to pivot between that AoE and single target mode at will. You get a Werner pickup from Zansin. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, the Werner's going to be just as good for Zansin as it is for YiQiao. Right? They're both assassins with fairly high damage output. It's very hard to actually wall. There is a Hilda on YiQiao's side, so Zansin won't be able to crit with this Werner. But Werner is one of the least crit reliant assassins, thanks to his talent having an attack boost as opposed to just crit and crit damage boosts. And dual strike on Werner, getting to attack twice again. Just so much damage output even without the crit. So he obviously appreciates the crit, but he's not as reliant on it as some of these other assassins tend to be, right? Like an Epsilon that doesn't crit basically doesn't do damage. A Kyra that doesn't crit can struggle with some bulkier targets. but a Werner that doesn't crit will still just kill everything. And we have a Elwyn getting picked up. Elwyn here buffing the Werner, buffing the Sissy. The Sissy summons will allow Elwyn 3C to re-trigger the buff, so he can keep that faction buff up very easily. So that's a pretty strong Elwyn pick. It's not the best damage-wise into the Hilda. However, Lucretia's fairly good at killing Hildas. So if you can actually kill off this Hilda, then Elwyn's a very strong pick for an end game scenario. And then we have the Mariel. The Mariel, again, the damage is questionable at times. Very likely cannot kill the Wedham. I would say absolutely cannot kill the Wedham. Probably kills Ares. Can kill Werner, but if, again, Werner on a tree with heavy infantry, and suddenly surviving is a possibility for that Werner. As long as the Leanna is not fixed immune, should be able to kill the Leanna as well, though. So the Mariel's okay here. Okay, but not amazing, which is fine for a last pick unit. So there's definitely a lot more damage on Zansin's side, thanks to the Sissy fulfilling the role of both healer and tank, whereas YiQiao has 2 different units for doing that. The Sissy is more susceptible as a tank, more vulnerable to having her mercenary killed and then letting the rest of your team get killed afterwards, whereas like Hilda takes multiple turns to break. So it's definitely not as reliable as a Hilda tank, but at the same time, when you have this much damage, it's hard for your opponent to be able to afford to hit the tank, right? Hit the summon mercenary, kill it, and not really do anything else to any of these other units, and then spend another action going in and trying to kill another unit. That very frequently will end up going negatively for YiQiao. So we will see. The Werners are going to be running around, zoning each other out as well. So we'll see what happens with that little Werner dance. It's very likely going to be dependent on who gets breezes when, what happens with these Werners. We do have the Highlands on Mariel. There's Werner and Werner. 6-star on YiQiao's side, 6-star on Zansin's side. Everyone's nice and big. 6-star Wedham as well. Does go with single target on Ares as opposed to AoE. I can understand that. There's nothing here that AoE will really effectively kill, right? Sissy has Shrine Maidens, is on a Swordsmith. You're just not going to do any meaningful damage here. Werner doesn't really care about your AoEs. He has way too much HP. Mariel has damage reduction, good defense, and then Lucretia has a revive. So you're not one-tapping anyone with the AoE, so it feels a little bad to bring it. The only way that you could actually get something to happen with this AoE is, again, you AoE with the Ares and then try and pick something up with the Wedham, but that's not the most reliable of plans. So just goes with a single target, so that when this mercenary does go down, Ares can start picking things off. It also lets you use Ares to keep this Elwyn in line. Right, Elwyn can't just run off and do whatever he wants if there's an Ares threatening to kill him. So, single target, very reasonable here. That's what that all boils down to. Both sides have an act again, so there's not too much to be gained from either one using act agains. Frequently, when you're in this scenario where both people have an act again, you'll see a very early act again come out from player 1, just to drop them into second player so that the act again on the other side of the field is less valuable. Now, we might not see that happen here, since Sissy does take a little bit of time to wind up to her act again, as opposed to being available immediately like Leanna, like Flo is. Especially when she has to spend a turn summoning a mercenary. So you could see this act again get held for a little while longer, or YiQiao might just pull the trigger, throw it out immediately, get herself into player 2, and try and get that act again cycling through its cooldown, get it back off cooldown, and use it as player 2, where it becomes really strong. But in the meantime, Elite Mercenary is summoned. Yep, there's the immediate act again, just like I was mentioning. Yep, Elite Mercenary is summoned, guarding the entire team. He won't live any of these attacks hitting him, but also YiQiao really doesn't want to commit a unit to killing him. So it's just kind of an awkward scenario. It's part of what makes Sissy so incredibly useful now that she has her exclusive and her coins are not as much of a liability. Double green Hilda in front of the Elwyn. That does make her pretty vulnerable to Mariel, to Highland specifically. Mariel can't take a life with her first hit, just thanks to her own damage reduction that she inflicts on herself. So you don't have to worry about losing both lives of this Hilda. But it does mean that Mariel could potentially take a life at some point. Right, she goes in, she hits the Hilda, assassinates someone, and then can kind of run by and take a life on the Hilda on her way out, kind of thing. Is a potential concern. We have Werner setting up in guard range. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So Zansin just taking the terrain very aggressively with his Werner, and starting this little zoning game of Werner versus Werner, who gets the breeze first. I suppose YiQiao's Werner killing Zansin's Werner might be questionable. No, there is a gospel, so no, there will be an attack buff on the Werner when he goes in. It should be no concern whether it kills or not. I actually see Zansin back off immediately with the Werner. That's a bit surprising to me, honestly, that he didn't want to maintain that aggressive position. Maybe he was afraid of, like, Ares coming in, killing the Elite Mercenary, and then Wedum following up and killing the Werner. But then both these DPS have been committed, you just kind of kill them on your end. Because by pulling back like this, you give YiQiao the opportunity to push forward with her Werner. And, it's the same thing as the old days when we had Zerata dances, right? Once you lose that terrain, you really can't get it back. And so your entire team gets pushed back a tile because you drop your Werner back a tile, right? So YiQiao pushes up, takes advantage of that extra terrain, that one extra tile that she can safely take. And now Zansin really can't cross this line. Mariel could potentially cross it. Mariel might be fine against it. Ah, no, we do have the +1 movement. So actually that was a bit of a ruse there from Zansin. Pulling back a tile to get YiQiao to push up, and then giving +1 movement. I was wondering if there was a movement boost somewhere. Forgot that Sissy had that. So that does let Zansin threaten to kill this Werner. It is 3C into Hilda Aura on a forest. That's a lot of extra bells and whistles for YiQiao to potentially survive off of. So it might be a bit concerning to go for the 3C here as opposed to the double strike. We will have to see how that pans out. Elwyn just runs around, picks up a breeze. This Elwyn's not really doing very much other than just faction buffing and waiting for it to get to late game. Okay, 3C comes out from the Leanna. Is this black hole in range? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just barely not. So that is one way to help guarantee killing this Werner, is if you're able to get a little bit of AoE chip onto him, then it becomes significantly easier to get that kill. But it's not worth giving up your Lucretia just for that. However, Lucretia with a breeze now, definitely much more able to threaten that. So Lucretia's threatening to get a black hole here. As long as YiQiao saves Leanna's action for responding to this black hole, she should be completely fine. Since Leanna doesn't have to take a turn doing gospel anymore. So we'll see if this Werner just decides to send it at some point. Oh, Ares is sending it. Okay, YiQiao is not going to take the risk of Werner killing Werner, and is instead just going to bring in Ares, do a basic attack to save Noble Charge for later, and then pick up the team, pull him out of position, try and get something with Wedham now. Is not quite able to get back into guard, unfortunately. So Ares is going to presumably die for this. That doesn't mean that Mariel wouldn't be able to assassinate anyone if she kills the Ares, because she would be attacking an unguarded target here. So perhaps Mariel actually just goes for the murder instead. And so she does. So 3C into Hilda, break the commandment, set up for the assassination. However, Thorn's proc means that she loses all of her HP and just kills herself because of it. That's not good if you are Zansin. Yikes. Thorn's proc just completely obliterated the Mariel's Highland Warriors there. And now Wedham gets a free engage, right? She went for Wedham as opposed to Werner, because Werner would have just killed her before she even hit him. But Wedham does plenty of damage, plenty of counter damage, has the boost versus holy units as well, and snipes the Elwyn out, since the Elwyn did not have his revive there. Gets a clock on the Annihilation as well. That's a yikes moment. Lucretia with broken swords very likely doesn't kill this. Once the sword goes down, though, you should be able to. Should be able to kill this with a Dark Reaper here. But, I mean, that's 2 units down for just the Wedham. That's not a good start. Especially since this Ares still has a Noble Charge available, still can do something. Doesn't look like he can hit the Werner, at least. So the most that he could do would take a life on the Lucretia, which isn't really worth it. However, you could see like maybe Werner snipes the puppet to open the path for Ares. Or you could just see Ares run away. Or even Hilda move up. There's lots of things that could go on here. Lucretia Revive is talent. It is not a passive on the puppet. Alright, and for those of you on Twitch, Octavia has decided that you guys get to watch an ad, so have fun. If you're on YouTube, congratulations. You don't have to watch this. Great timing, Octavia. Alright, so we do see Hilda move up, just gets guard onto the Ares, refreshes her anti-crit aura to try and deny this Werner kills. He is missing some troops. That's not really a lot of damage missing, but it's some. Act again, Lucretia comes in. So now Lucretia probably just looking to black hole here and set up a kill for the Werner. Set up either the kill on Ares or the kill on Werner. Let's see what YiQiao wants to do about that. This game's definitely not over, right? Zansin's potentially at a disadvantage here. However, YiQiao's units are kind of exposed and vulnerable to getting killed by this Werner. However, if Zansin loses the Werner, the game will quickly follow, I imagine. So you see Ares come in, picks off the puppet, and then thanks to his exclusive, he's able to run away again. Just runs back to Hildegard. But that does mean that Zansin can now go for Black Hole into Werner attack. The Liana is still open though, so the Black Hole's not really gonna do too much. It's looking rough for Zansin. It's looking like that Mariel failed engage is gonna be the death of him. Takes a life off of the Hilda and breaks the crit aura, as opposed to just dropping a Black Hole that doesn't do anything. It's a very reasonable play to make. So now Werner can crit again. It's just a question of, do you target the enemy Werner, do you target the Ares? And there's still the issue of whichever one you kill, how do you survive the other one on the next turn? Right, how do you actually kill this Hilda now? If you target the Werner, do you actually kill him at all? Actually decides to just go back into attack stance with his Werner. Just repositions a little bit, gets maybe a better angle. Looking for a better engage than this. YiQiao will kill off the Lucretia, using 3C so she stays in attack stance. However, that means that you don't have... This Werner doesn't have enough range to hit Zansin's Werner, since that was 3C use, so the only skill left has 3 range. So Werner can hang out in the back for a little while longer, get a little more healing off the Sissy, get another Lancer up, and now he's safe. Right now Ares has to once again kill the Lancer before he can do anything. Zansin is also threatening here to do an assassination skill from inside of guard. Should be very difficult for YiQiao to deal with, since she does have to get through this guarding Lancer before she can actually kill the Werner, if her Werner goes down. So we see Elite Mercenary drop to a Noble Charge. However, no faction buff, and Gale was on cooldown anyways, means that he's not going anywhere. We get the double strike into the Werner. Turn priority is maintained here for Zansin, so he will go first next turn. However, this Werner has to be able to take a Liana, act again on Ares, and Hilda doing whatever. Very likely just buffing the Ares, and then Ares goes all in here. It looks rough for Werner. And Zansin just goes ahead and concedes. Werner not being in a stance there means that there's nothing he can really do the next turn either. All he can do is just hit into a Hilda, which does nothing at all. So he just goes ahead and calls it. And we will go to game 2. YiQiao up 1-0. Turn order is going to be the same, and the map is the same as well. Thank you, Random Map Generator, for giving us the same map twice in a row. You gotta love when it does that. So once again, on Plains of Strife, once again, YiQiao first pick. Let's see what the adaptation is this time. Does Zansin pick up a tank this time, whereas he didn't last time? Right, do you pick up a tank this time to potentially wall this Ares a little bit better? Wall the Ares, wall the Wedham? Do you maybe ban those units earlier? Does anything crazy happen in sideboxing here? right? Does Zansin bring in another tank to make sure his tanks don't get banned? Do you just bring in more DPS? Do you change from single target to AoE? Lots of things can happen here. Alright, we got a few changes here for Zansin. So it does brings in a bit more AoE in the Lana and the Lewin. Lana very frequently is an AoE unit as opposed to single target. If you want a single target mage, there are better options than Lana most of the time. Also brings in the Liana as an extra act again for being player 2, as opposed to just having the Sissy, right? There's no flow in this box. There's only the Rosin and the Sissy for healing. There's only the Christie and the Hilda for tanking. I suppose Mariel kind of counts as a healer, but Mariel is gone now because she disappointed Zansin horrendously by almost dying on her engage to Thorns and then not killing the Wedham and actually dying to him instead. That was not a great outcome for Zansin at all. So we see Rosin ban from Zansin, Kyra ban from YiQiao, Werner pick once again. Again, Werner's he's a good unit. He's a good assassin. Not as buff reliant, not as crit reliant as the other assassins, so a much more safe first pick right now. Just because if you're not banning this Hilda, if you're not banning the Hilda immediately, an Epsilon first pick is incredibly dangerous. Sherry has a very low kill threshold compared to like a Werner or an Epsilon, right? There's a lot of units that Sherry just will not kill with Shadow Raid. But we do see the Epsilon and the Liana getting banned and a Christie picked up. That does leave Flo Tieris for YiQiao, both fairly aggressive healers that definitely will help this Werner quite a bit. Liana ban, though, means that perhaps Zansin's looking more down this AoE line with these units that he brought in. Right, so he's leaving the two healers that are the worst against AoE in this Tieris and Flo in order to potentially try and pick up the Lana here, get some big sanctions off, pick up the Lewin, do some AoE dispelling there. Lucretia can bring AoEs, Himiko is very nice as well. That's interesting. I never realized that, but you can actually see, the side box behind this little, behind the background here. I actually cannot see that on the other side. I wonder if that's just because Zansin actually did change some of his units. Wild. Anyways, Tieris is the pickup for YiQiao. So this Werner just will kill everything. He already killed most things, now he will kill everything. Attack Blessing is so much. And then we have a Sissy as well for Zansin. So once again with the Sissy, the Liana did get banned, decided not to pick up the Rosin. Rosin has some okay things that she blocks off, right? Helena, Ares AoE, Burn Sword Dance, Lucretia AoE, but it's not super necessary here, especially since this Werner is already here. So Zansin just elects to go for the Sissy instead. Sissy has that act again, which is very nice. YiQiao this time does not have an act again of her own to counter that, so that extra bit of utility makes the Sissy incredibly valuable. We do get the Bernhardt picked up from YiQiao. Rosin is still unbanned, but you don't really want to pick Rosin here, so this Sword Dance is going to land, it's going to connect, you're going to get heal blocks, you're going to do a bunch of damage with it. It's just a question of, do you have the follow-up to kill afterwards? You have a Pepsi pick. Hilda is still open, however, if YiQiao picks up the Hilda now, she's locking into 2 tanks. So even though that's very good against the Pepsi, it's not really worth dropping another DPS. So you see the Ares pick instead, which means this Hilda is going to get banned, which means the Epsilon is a little bit stronger. Well, a lot bit stronger. Still not going to kill a Burn. Werewolf should do a good job of keeping him safe for the majority of the game there. But can definitely kill the Ares, can definitely kill the Werner. Might need some stacks to kill the Werner, though. Ares should be pretty easy. Actually, the Hilda remains open. I suppose YiQiao does have the burn, could bring guard skill anyways. So Zansin wanted to get rid of this flow to prevent YiQiao from having an act again. That is one of the big advantages Zansin has right now, is being the only player in possession of an act again. But banning the Landius over the Hilda seems a bit odd. You are denying a faction buff for the Werner, but at the same time, there's a Tiaris buff already on him. And a lot of your units... I suppose he would need a buff to actually kill these units. Right, the Sissy's very bulky like we saw last time. He really just doesn't interact with Epsilon at all. Himiko he can't kill because of Himiko talent. Helena he definitely would want a buff to be able to kill. So I suppose I do understand the Landius ban. It just feels really awkward with an Epsilon. Because again, Epsilon without crit just kind of doesn't do anything. He might be able to kill Ares, but he probably doesn't kill Werner. He definitely doesn't kill Burn, and he might miss the Ares kill if he doesn't have stacks. Now with the Sissy, you do have easy ways to get stacks. You can just summon mercenaries and either throw them into Hilda to break crit aura and gain a stack, or you can just, if you can't get them to Hilda, then you can throw them into the fog, right? You can easily get those stacks set up on the Epsilon to get to the point where you can actually start killing the Ares and potentially the Werner without the crit. So I suppose it still is fine to let the Hilda through here. You just can't go too early with the Epsilon or you will be disappointed. Especially with Burn Aura here. Right, Epsilon's assassination skill, his 3C specifically, is 3 range, which means that he has to be in Burn Aura. Right, it's going to be very hard for him to find an angle onto any of these units outside of Burn Aura, and that definitely will cut his kill potential quite a bit. Bolt Rangers on the Tiaris also will help her to survive. We actually do not see 3C on the Tiaris, just regular attack blessing, miracle, mass heal. So that does mean the Werner has to go without a buff, which is a bit awkward. He did bring, or YiQiao did bring state guards into this Helena though, who brought Royals, so you actually probably don't need a buff anymore to kill this Helena. When you use 3C on Werner, his troops are going to attack first. So you'll have the Lancers attacking into these Royals and they'll just shred through them, even with the Royal damage reduction. You'll just kind of blast through those and then kill the Helena behind it pretty quickly, especially with attack blessing. So yeah, you don't have an attack buff, but honestly, probably don't need it here. It's probably just fine to not have a buff. Hilda moves full forward. Ooh, brought dominating formation. Nice bit of tech here. Not super effective versus the likes of Helena and Himiko, since they do just kind of overwrite the tiles anyways. But you never know. Sometimes it just kind of works out. And since you don't need the faction buffs, it's Burns buffing everyone anyways. You don't have too many options for skills on Hilda. Right, you could bring Route, I guess, but dominating formation seems like a good idea anyways. Just get yourself a little bit of extra guard up time. Get a little bit of AoE damage, a little bit of tile manipulation. Not a bad pick whatsoever. You have AoE on the Ares, makes sense when you have a Bernhardt with Sword Dance here. Right, Bernhardt can run in and heal block everyone, and then Ares will pick up a whole bunch of kills. Easily kills the Himiko, easily kills the Epsilon. Right, if these units are chipped at all, they go down to Ares. Should be able to kill the Sissy as long as her shrines are broken. That one's a little bit harder. She's a little bit bulkier than the other units. Well, a lot bit bulkier. But the Ares should have a Judge Talisman to help out quite a bit against that. So it should still be a reliable kill. Again, after burn the sword against everyone. Also, one thing that I maybe misled you a bit about, the Lancers on Werner are very good against the Helena. However, they're not, you don't necessarily have the type advantage there, right? If you use 3C with the Werner, you will actually lose your type advantage on the Lancers, and then you probably aren't killing the Helena, so you do need to double strike this Helena to kill her, which means that you have to get in 3 range. So again, the Lancers will help you actually kill the Helena without a buff, but it is a little bit awkward. You might not be able to get the kill with 3C without that attack buff. Just want to clear that up a bit. Got 3C and Sneak on this Epsilon. Nothing too unexpected. Sometimes you see the 1-cost guard ignore here instead of Sneak. When you have a Sissy though, you can reset this 3C cooldown very quickly by, again, just sacking mercenaries. Sacking mercenaries to your enemy tank, sacking mercenaries to the fog. So it's not really too much of a concern, the cooldown there. That being said, Sneak isn't doing you a whole lot of favors against double AoE here. It's very easy for YiQiao to just spot this Epsilon if he tries to run off and be by himself. So, potentially 1-cost guard ignore could have been better, but who knows? We'll have to see how the game plays out before you can actually say that for certain. That's one of those hindsight things. There's just about the same odds of 1-cost guard ignore being worthless here as there are of it being actually better than Sneak. So, who knows? Especially with the fact that the guard ignore skill does give Epsilon a damage down based on how far he moves. When you're already going into a Hilda, your damage is already questionable. So it can definitely be awkward to bring that and just run in, fail a kill somewhere. Himiko getting the anti-AoE applied to her by Christie to help try and keep her alive against these AoE units. It shouldn't actually keep her alive as long as Bernhardt hits her and then Ares hits her, or even Ares and then Bernhardt. The Himiko should still die. He's not that bulky. Freeze on the Pepsi. Is in range to target this Werner. Right, so could attempt that, but going into the Werner on a tree in Hilda Aura without any stacks, it feels awkward, especially if the burn moves up to cover him with burn aura. Then it starts feeling impossible. You just lose so much damage on Epsilon by not critting, since your talent is entirely based on crit and crit damage. So if a crit is guaranteed not happening, it hurts a lot. Himiko pops out and does the sealing technique on Ares. So now you don't get that AoE combo for another turn, right? Ares can't click his 3C here. This is undispellable. So that does slow down YiQiao quite a bit. No clock on it, fortunately, so you can't have this Himiko just sit here and lock down the Ares for the rest of the game, basically. But definitely an awkward scenario. Also strips like all his buffs, which don't really matter to him, since he's just going to He's just gonna re-get his attack buff with 3C anyways. In fact, attack buff being the only thing that's remaining on the series is actually kind of bad for him, because it makes timing the 3C a little bit more awkward. If you go in while this buff is on its last turn, you don't refresh it. So that is potentially awkward. That's the one buff out of all of his others that actually remained. We did get a Tenuous Breeze, I believe, on the Burn. Yes, Burn has a Tenuous Breeze. That is terrifying, because he can just kind of run out, sword dance your entire team, and no one can really stop him from doing that, or do anything about him doing that. That's a lot of damage potential that can just kind of show up whenever. Ares being silenced does mean there isn't a follow-up to it, though. That's kind of the one redeeming thing that Zansin has going on about this Tenuous Breeze is if Burn just kind of YOLO runs into the middle of the team, that's it. There's nothing coming afterwards. It's just the Burn. But it's actually a Mjolnir Burn. That is very important information. Mjolnir Burn means that this sword dance is only 2 rings as opposed to 3. So it's actually a lot harder for him to get the entire team in it. He does send the Himiko home, but now she's just in guard, so no real concerns there. It doesn't mean that she can't poke out and be a nuisance for a while, but she can still be a nuisance by just sitting behind guard and throwing out 3Cs. And we do see an act again onto the Himiko, so she will do exactly that, potentially trying to dispel this mobility up, or just get mobility down to counteract it. Helps her reset her talent a little bit quicker as well. However, it does overwrite her buff from the Epsilon, so she doesn't have attack buff there anymore. She might have already burned through it, though. She went through it pretty quick. Because she should still have the magic defense portion of it, but I don't see that anywhere. So we will see. Does the Himiko... The Himiko can't really, like, full send it. Oh, she's gonna full send it. So Himiko throws out 3C, does a good chunk of damage, gets some mobility down supplied, gets some AoE damage out. Right, we get a damage down on the burn. However, do you actually live the burn here? Surely not. These goblins are so frail. Burn does so much damage. You did just barely break 70% on the werewolves, which is very nice. Right, so they don't have their attack up tech anymore. But at the same time, I mean, it's not even 400 defense on both of these. Well, 405 on the goblins, not quite 400 on the Himiko. But also, if Burn comes in and just basic attacks and kills the Himiko, is he dead for that? Is he dead to Helena plus Epsilon just jumping in on him afterwards? So here comes the Burn, down goes the Himiko. Again, absolutely no concern there. Healing Light will heal him back up, though he is going to take some fixed damage for standing on Himiko tiles. YiQiao did choose to attack from here as opposed to coming down and around. Attacking from here does mean that the bird is closer to Tierras, potentially already in Tierras range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, so Tierras is able to mass heal this Bernhardt. So if the Helena or if the Epsilon comes and crashes into him, then you can just heal him back up. Try and keep him safe like that. Gets the all stats down from Himiko. That is very annoying. Makes it very hard to actually dispel debuffs. But I imagine... I wonder if Helena actually kills this burn. Werewolves are just so damn good. Epsilon does not. Epsilon attempts it, Epsilon fails it. However, he doesn't have a Tierras blessing on him anymore. Or a Tierras talent on him anymore, so he did not get any extra healing after that. Right, so the burn is very low. Tiaris can mass heal him, but that won't be enough to get Steel Mains back to their tech, which means that Helena will probably kill at that point. The Hilda is not in range to get the burn back in guard to try and save him. So it is very likely that we will see this burn go down. And once the burn drops, there's still a Werner, so I'm hesitant to say that YiQiao's team falls apart. It definitely does not appreciate losing this burn. This burn is very, very good for the team, especially since it's the faction buff for these units. So you definitely don't love to lose the burn here, but I think you might be able to afford to lose the burn here. So the question is, do you commit your Tiaris to try and heal him, to try and save this Bernhardt, or do you just let him go, let him die to the Helena, because he probably dies anyways? Hold your Tiaris back where it's a little bit safer. The one advantage to sending your Tiaris down here to save burn is that it will force skills out of the Helena. Right now, Helena can kind of probably can't just end turn, although you do have the Sissy as well. Sissy can also just kill this. So yeah, Zansin does not need to use any type of skills here to kill this burn. Nothing will go on cooldown. You're able to just, you can basic attack it with Sissy, you can probably just end turn with Helena, and that will very likely be enough. There is also the risk for YiQiao of Helena actually just killing Ares here. Right? If she runs over and shivs on him and then clicks 3C here, that's not a bad chance of killing. So we do see the burn go down. Do we get a mercenary summon to help Epsilon reset his 3C? No, we do not. Sissy decided to save some coins for Act Again instead. Or just doesn't want to drop a mercenary at this time. Burner into Sissy. Ooh, what did you lose to the Tenyos? Did you lose the damage up? Or do you just not do that much damage? He did lose the damage up. Yep, Tenyos strips damage up, and Werner does not kill because of it. Werner is now in defense stance, which means that he just can't do anything at all for a while, and yeah, the Ares is in trouble. In comes the Helena, just barely surviving the counterattack. So the Helena is very likely dead for this. Right, Tiaris can probably finish her off, but Ares is dead too. And when you kill this Helena, Epsilon gets one turn closer to having 3C. Right? Your Werner's not able to pick him off right now. Because he's in defense stance, he needs to switch stances before he can do anything here. There is the risk of Epsilon just kind of taking over this game here. Even once you get into attack stance on Werner, you still have to deal with the fact that Epsilon has a shield. Right? Ares goes down, meaning that there's no AoE left on YiQiao's side at all, which means there's nothing that can actually break this Epsilon's shield. So suddenly it becomes very hard to actually kill the Epsilon even once you get the skills to try and assassinate him again. And Sissy has an Act Again available. Sissy is able to summon a mercenary here and Act Again. No, Act Again is on cooldown. Okay. That's why that's why there was no Act Again last turn, because Act Again is on cooldown. I did not notice that. That is my bad. So it's Zansin to move. Helena was not targeted by Tiaris last turn. Instead, Tiaris elected to heal, which means that Helena gets away. Now you have a Helena here as well. Werner is in defense stance, YZ. He failed a kill with 3C. He cannot hit the Sissy. He can stance change and then hit the Sissy next turn. Right, and Sissy's healing output is not that high. So it's very likely that she cannot get her Shrine Maidens all the way back up by the time that Werner is hitting her. But again, if you hit the Sissy, there's an Epsilon that's sitting here that you haven't touched. It's going to have 3C again, and he's going to kill your entire team. Damage. Did he take damage? Yes, he did. He did take damage. He did have his weapon, so he could have guard ignored to kill the Sissy. But it still doesn't deal with the Epsilon, right? Definitely demonstrates why Epsilon is frustrating to play against. Yeah, I mean, if you don't answer the Epsilon quickly, then you get to these endgame scenarios where all your pieces that could answer the Epsilon are now gone. And then Epsilon just kind of takes over. Yes, I think you're right, YZ, that he should have been able to jump in and kill the Sissy here. However, YiQiao might not have wanted to do that, right? You jump in and kill the Sissy here, and you have a very injured Werner. Well, he would be back at 100% from this, from Tiara's buff. But it's not that hard for like Christy to walk forward, and Christy walk forward, do the AoE one here, break his rights, and then Epsilon just kind of jumps in and kills him. And then the game is over. Ooh, dominating formation actually coming in handy here. That's gonna give up this Epsilon. Everyone forgot, dominating formation was on this Hilda. Yikes. I forgot, Zansin forgot, the only person who didn't forget was YiQiao. So now there is an attack blessing Werner able to hit this Epsilon. He doesn't have a lot of attack, but he's going to be double striking. He has an attack blessing. It should kill. And then the Epsilon goes down. That leaves only the Helena, who can't get through this Hilda. That might be game. That dominating formation might have just won the game for YiQiao. Because she will have turn priority here. Right? None of your Sissy mercenaries can help you here. They don't give any damage reduction. You basically have to survive this with Epsilon, and that's probably not going to happen. Right? Shield can't come back until Epsilon ends his turn. What a dominating formation. Sissy does the AoE heal. We see a Cav get summoned. So they're going to try and use the Cav here to guard block the Hilda. However, does he have to live to do that? He does not. So Hilda is unable to guard, which means that Helena can try and kill the Werner after he kills Epsilon, but you don't have an attack buff. You're double Cav into Lancers, you just do 20 damage. Epsilon goes down. Werner's at 100%. Christie's not going to kill him. Helena goes after the Tiaras, but Bolt Rangers mean you're not killing that. Now you can get the Tiaras on the next turn. Right? As long as this Hilda does not manage to get... As long as Tiaras does not manage to dispel Guard Ignore on Hilda, then you can get the Tiaras on the next turn. Or you can get her on this turn because you have an act again. That's also a thing. Maybe, you know, Tiaras uses her move, you hit the Werner, and then act again, Helena, kill the Werner potentially. That dominating formation made this game a lot closer than it looked like it was going to be. That's for certain. There's the Tiaras move. Even if you hit the Werner with Christie, though, he has Tiaras talent on him, so he's just going to heal back up. Right? It's not actually going to get you anything. As long as there's any Lancers at all here, Helena's just not going to kill him. Christy reapplies faction buff. I imagine we will see an act again on this Helena to kill off the Tiaras, potentially kill off the Tiaras, hopefully kill off the Tiaras. Zansin crossing his fingers that it kills off the Tiaras. It should, right? You get the 30% attack buff from the act again. Oh, no, wait a minute. Guard Ignore got dispelled. Never mind. Game is over. Out of all these debuffs, a single mass heal is all it took. Got the Guard Ignore, which means that Helena's now hitting the Hilda again, which means that she just can't attack. So Tiaras is gonna live. Right, you have another turn before you can bring out another Cav to try again. Tiaras doesn't have any healing skills in the meantime, but also the Werner gets to set back up while you're doing this. Right, the Tiaras will have a skill by the time that you're ready. Beautiful Bloom on the Helena just to try and get as many Blood Sword procs as possible while the healing is down. Right, try and get some actual damage onto this Werner. Try and get some damage on the Tiaras to keep her low enough that she can't heal herself back into Bolt Ranger range. Though she should have no real issues doing so. There's the Chivalry. It's a lot of AoE damage, but you basically need 100% Blood Sword here. And even then, it's not going to be enough. Maybe? You get a lot of Blood Swords. Werner's in trouble. Werner's in a lot more trouble than he looked like he should have been. Full Bloom, giving her an extra chance to proc Blood Sword is very relevant. Is it enough to pick up the Werner? Is it enough to pick up the Tiaras, though? You can end turn one more time, get the full cycle of AoEs again. Now 3C is up at the start of the turn. Turn priority does go to YiQiao, and the Werner dies. Uh-oh. Or turn priority goes to, well, it would go to Zansin, now it goes to YiQiao. Sorry, I'm a bit confused because they're standing on the wrong side of the map. Yikes, the Werner dies there, though. That's not good. I think that means that Zansin will be able to take this. Christy should shred through this Hilda in the end game. Even if the Tiaras manages to survive here, which she doesn't. Ouch, Blood Sword. And gone. And that's it. Hilda by herself is not going to win this game. That was close. That dominating formation almost made this game a win. Almost turned it around for YiQiao. But it was not quite enough. A little bit too unlucky with the Blood Sword procs onto Werner. Means that Werner dropped before he got a chance to attack, get his Tiaras healing to get back up. And finally, we get a different map as we go to Game 3. So we'll see if we get any box changes. We'll see if the game, for whatever reason, lets us see the side boxes behind the background here. I still don't really know why that was happening. If that's supposed to happen or if that was a bug. I feel like that's probably intentional. It's just a weird intentional. Zansin actually didn't get to use any of his backup units, though bring them in did change around the pick ban a little bit, so got him to allowed him to pick this Helena that let him win the game, allowed him to pick the Epsilon. So I imagine we won't see too much different from Zansin. Potentially taking the Leanna out since he's player 1 now. So the act again not as useful anymore, right? Might just take this out, put a different DPS in, and just rely on having just these 2 healers with the intention of picking Sissy and using her as a tank and a healer like the first game. We'll see if maybe YiQiao brings in another act again healer. It would have to be Sissy. I don't know if YiQiao has a Sissy. Bernhardt comes out, Jugler comes in. So answering these AoEs a little bit better by bringing in the Jugler. The Bernhardt was nice though. I don't think the Bernhardt was a liability that game. I think he was quite helpful. Mjolnir burn being revealed is a little bit awkward though. Right, that burn not being BB means that Zansin would know that and can play very actively around it this game, whereas he didn't have, he got to see it and go, oh, and have one turn of kind of positioning based on that knowledge. But if you know that as a fact for the entire game, that actually is a pretty big difference in how you position your units. Just not having to deal with that extra Ring of Sword Dance range. So that could be the reasoning behind pulling the Bernhardt out here. And we do get a Christie first pick, so Zansin does not want to go tankless. However, is picking Christie here. The Epsilon is still open. So Epsilon is much stronger versus Christie than versus Hilda. So we could see an Epsilon first pick from YiQiao. We could continue to see just the Werner first pick. Werner's still very good unit. With the Rosin band, there's still 3 healers left, so YiQiao's not pressured to pick a healer yet. And we just see the Werner first pick. Again, just a strong, reliable unit. A little unfortunate that it died to the Helena last time. But in general, nothing wrong with the Werner pick. He's just good. See the Lana get banned again, so we won't get any massive AoE bombs from Lana with the Christie buff. Zansin still has 3 healers, so we'll very likely not see a healer pick here, as locking into double healer this early is typically something you don't want to do. You do have a Sherry pick. Sherry with the Christie buff is nice. Again, Sherry, of the assassins that are commonly used, Sherry has the lowest kill potential of them, so it can be a little bit awkward. Of the units that YiQiao has, Werner very likely doesn't die to Sherry. Doesn't die unless she brings goblins for certain. Right, if the Sherry brings goblins, then maybe you can kill Werner. That feels questionable. You can probably kill Ares, but like you're not killing Wedham, you're not killing Lucretia because of the revive, you're not killing Helena. Of the healers, it depends on if they're fixed immune or not at that point. Very likely not killing Tierras behind Bolt Rangers though. Bolt Rangers' damage reduction should be plenty to keep her alive. YiQiao with a very early Leanna pickup. That does mean that she is potentially locked into 2 healers. However, she's player 2. One of those healers is Leanna. Another potential healer is Flo. So if Zansin wants to lock YiQiao into double healer, it's double act again. Which means that, YiQiao essentially at some point gets to take 3 turns in a row. That's typically not something you want to let your opponent do. Right? A Werner, Werner taking 3 turns in a row will just kill 2 units and set up to kill a 3rd. Ares Helena taking multiple turns at the same time mean that your entire team dies to AoE before you get to heal any of it. Right? Typically, you do not want to give up those kind of actions. You have to be very confident that you can kill your opponent before they become relevant if you're going to give that up. Got a Kyra pick, more assassins for Zansin. You know, that is a way to try and kill your opponent before the actigons become overwhelming. YiQiao running a little bit low on time here, needs to make a ban decision quickly. Rosin and Pepsi. So it gets the Pepsi out, banning the Rosin as the last healer remaining, so there is no more healing on Zansin's side. At the same time, though, Kyra can heal after using her 3C. Sherry heals herself. Lewin has a lot of built-in healing. Wedham has a lot of built-in healing with the sword. We get the Hilda pick from YiQiao. Pretty good against the Kyra. Not as relevant against Sherry. Sherry doesn't crit that much anyways to really care about the anti-crit aura, but against Kyra, it's very helpful. Kyra has a lot of difficulty killing without crits. And there's the flow pick. Yep, YiQiao did lose all of her damage by picking this Hilda this early, right? Running 4 tanks and 4 healers after bringing in the Jugler. So it will be entirely on this Werner to win this game. But at the same time, Werner's going to take a lot of turns. Usually it can be really rough for 1 DPS to win a game like that, but Werner does a lot of damage, and if he gets to take a whole lot of turns, and he has a faction buff from Melandius, it's not unbelievable that Werner can just solo this game. Right, as long as these assassins go down, he'll be pretty safe. He's already pretty safe against the Sherry, so he really needs to make sure the Kyra goes down, and the Helena potentially, so that you don't get AoE down like you did in the last game. But once those 2 are down, it's going to be really hard to kill this Werner while he just sits there taking turn after turn after turn. That's pretty scary for Zansin. But on the flip side of that, if the Werner goes down, YiQiao is dead. If the Werner goes down before like 3 units, I would say, have died on Zansin's side, then YiQiao is just gonna bleed out over time, right? Eventually, the remaining DPS will wear down your tanks, wear down your healers, and break through. If there's an assassin left for certain, YiQiao will be in a lot of trouble. If it's just like the Wedham and Helena left, maybe double healer, double tank can hold on there, right? The Helena won't do a lot of damage. The Wedham will chunk people consistently as long as his annihilation is up. But if there's an assassin alive after the Werner dies, then YiQiao is probably not winning. So we will see just how well this Werner can take over this game. We do have Highlands on the Helena. Heavy infantry on the Werner. There's the Goblin Sherry. Goblin Sherry with Legion, trying to maximize Shadow Raid damage. Since there are so many tanks, you don't really care about doing single target here. Both tanks being double green, these Highlands will do a lot of damage. You still won't one-shot these tanks, but you can definitely chew them up pretty badly. And then Christie herself will do pretty good damage into them as well, thanks to being double red once again. Broken Arrow on the Hilda is a good choice when you're facing Sherry, just to make sure that she doesn't try and attack your tank at 2 range and then run around and pick someone off behind. Right, especially with the Hilda, especially as a Hilda, you want your anti-crit aura preserved for whenever the Shadow Raid actually happens. Right, so you don't want her getting to just free break your crit aura and then act again and go kill, the Werner, who's your entire team. A lot of defensive terrain on this map for YiQiao to take advantage of as well. Right, just to keep making this Werner harder and harder to kill. You do have Faith on the Kyra. Faith Gospel, no jump on the Kyra. Again, it's all about killing the Werner. If you can just get that Werner, then you don't really need to come back afterwards. You just gotta get him. At the same time, he's in Landius aura, he's in Hilda aura. Heavy infantry are the bulkiest of his troops. It's not going to be easy to kill him. You will have a hard time assassinating this Wedham and Helena, though. Wedham especially. Helena he can potentially get with Double Strike, but Wedham is going to be very, very hard for him to actually kill. But again, those aren't really the priority targets, right? Because if you get into a scenario where it's double healer, double tank versus these three, then you might be okay from there. Alright, first act again gets used. Let the Hilda set up guard quicker. Potentially let this Werner position aggressively at the end of the turn after Zansin has used all his actions here. Right, Hilda can move forward, guard, and then Werner can like set up here, get act again, and try and do something. But very likely we'll just see Hilda guard, Werner set up somewhere, and then Leanna move forward. Potentially Gospel to Werner. Though you might want that Gospel on a tank to prevent them from getting heal reversed by Wedham, or to at least try and prevent them from getting heal reversed by Wedham. Never seems to work for me. Alright, there's the Werner positioning. He does have a breeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he can move to here. These tiles. So Kyra, Sherry, safely out of range. Zansin did position them both pretty far back just to keep them out of range of any potential breezes. Actually holds on to guard on the Hilda. Gonna let a turn of Landius guard go by first just to make sure both tanks don't lose guard at the same time. That makes sense. So the Werner can run out to here and try and pick off one of these units. But that's not really what he wants to do. He wants to be killing the Kyra. He wants to be killing the Sherry. So we'll just see him get gospeled, and YiQiao's probably gonna play very patiently, very slowly here, push up into these assassins, let the fog push Zansin in from the back. Right, eventually these units are going to be forced to get into Werner range, and then once they do, Werner's going to get on them, start taking a bunch of turns, and try and kill them all. But Helena is preparing her cheese. Full Bloom is on the Helena. She's not in range to do too much with it yet, but she can't get all the way out here for the first action before her Shiv. But we could very easily see her do the same thing she did last time, where she comes out, Shivs next to Werner, 3Cs into one of these tanks, explodes, 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 and with enough blood swords it will kill the Werner. Even with Hilda giving you a little bit of extra fixed damage reduction, if you're just getting hit by like 8 AoEs in a row, that's pretty painful. Alright, flow ending turn, getting back up to 5 stacks, so once again, double act again is now ready. On YiQiao's side, for this Werner to just go to 10. Helena backs off rather than... Helena backs off here rather than moving up. Moving up would just let the Werner do like a double strike on you inside of guard, which you really don't want him doing. Just backs up a bit, stays out of Werner range. Right, lets his own assassins play this kind of zoning game with the Werner. But again, eventually these two teams are going to get pushed into each other, and then it becomes, can you kill the Werner before he takes 3 actions and kills everyone on your team? Hilda just ending turn again. Once again, conserving that guard cooldown, or once Landius starts to come out of his guard. King's Crown onto the Sherry. Still very likely not enough for her to actually kill the Werner, but it definitely helps. Every bit of damage is necessary. Zansin also just having awful luck for breezes here. These two units are most certainly breeze. Very likely. The Kyra could be breeze, it could be meteor. It's a bit of a coin flip on that one, whether or not this Kyra is actually on breeze, but Helena, I'm almost certain, is a breeze unit here. Sherry should not be anything but breeze. So trying to fish for breezes and just not getting them, bit unfortunate. Okay, Werner creeps forward a little bit. Still hanging out on these forests where it's nice and safe, but his breeze is gone now, so he doesn't have as oppressive of range. Now he ties the Sherry, and he does actually get a little bit bullied by the Kyra when it comes to range. Though again, Kyra's damage is questionable in the Hilda aura. Definitely questionable. Faceless aren't really helping you here if you can't crit already. Wedham continuing to hang out on forest. Just everyone making use of these defensive tiles for all they're worth. Christie creeping forward. No one wants to touch this Christie. There's nothing to stop Zansin from just continuously pushing Christie forward. The only reason for Christie to be near her team this game is if you just want this flower formation aura. If you just want that 20% crit chance reduction, 10% range damage reduction. The magic damage reduction not actually relevant at all here, since the only unit here is a Werner. There's basically no one else here as far as damage is concerned. Blow moves, and we do see a rush onto the Werner. So now he's back to that nice 6 range. Is in range to 3C the Sherry, but very likely does not want to do that. Because if you just run in and 3C the Sherry, you know, you're dead to Wedham and Kyra hitting you. Zansin, however, is going to respect the range and just step Sherry out of it. Again, I almost feel like maybe you want that to connect. Does go for the double blade into Wedham and gets the kill there. Zip, double-bladed strike. Lot of damage. Only Kyra is able to punish this. However, because she loses her extra movement with When I'm Dead, she's actually not in range of this at all. So Kyra kind of impotent here. Burns through her last turn of Gospels. Now Wenham is dead and nothing has scratched the burner. Right? You can just act again, move back into guard, set back up, get ready to go again. 1-0 for YiQiao. The only thing that got burned there was a cooldown. And back to camping on defensive terrain she goes. Alright, Sherry's not going to kill a burner on a fort. King's Crown her now. That is way too much defense. Way too much defense, especially with all the extra damage reduction from Belandius, especially with the anti-crit from Hilda. It's just one thing after another, making sure that that does not happen. Hilda finally goes ahead and pulls the trigger on her guards, and she's going to have to faction buff next turn anyways. So wants to go ahead and get that guard up, free up her action to do that next turn. Landius' guard is going down this turn. So YiQiao just very cleanly keeping both guards up here. Helena clicks Shiv in place to get the full 5-tile move, hits into Hilda. Again, Highlands there let you kill the troops, which is nice, but you're not killing the Hilda herself. A lot of damage into the burner. So from this range, sure, Sherry can kill this burner. But the problem is there's so many healers on YiQiao's side, it's not a concern at all for her to just come down, heal the burner, get him back to 100%, and then Sherry won't kill him. In the meantime, Elena lost a whole bunch of HP on that, so now she's actually susceptible to burner killing her. And there's no healing on Zansin's side to really prevent that, right? The only thing that he could do to heal this Helena is like 3C the Hilda with his Kyra and then jump next to Christy or something. But that's not a great play, is how I would put it. That is not very helpful. The real question for YiQiao here is which healer do you use to protect the burner? Or do you just move the burner away? Right, that's also an option. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, you can just like back the burner up to this forest, and you see the Helena try and kill it, and then heal the burner later when he's out of range. Or you just step back, you know, set back up in strike stance, heal up later now that he's out of the way. You don't really have to risk anything with this burner. You don't have to risk Sherry killing him by some miracle, right? You don't have to risk failing to kill the Helena. Just step back, reset, get ready to go again later. Wait for your faction buff to come back up in a couple turns, reset the buff. Right, Gospel's back up soon as well. Get ready for a future engagement. He is off of the defensive terrain now. That is relevant. So he does have significantly less bulk, right? He doesn't have a faction buff, he doesn't have defensive terrain. So if you're Zansin, this is probably your best opportunity to kill him. God, Landius almost died to that. Woo! Double Red Christie just absolutely blasting the Landius. Leanna heals, but does not heal the Werner. Interesting. Gets targeted by the Kyra, however Shrine Maidens will keep her safe from the Faceless, and that does not kill. Could potentially, very likely drops to Sherry, however. Yeah. Flo shouldn't be able to fully reset the Leanna, and she cannot. So the Leanna is definitely dead to Sherry here, right? That is one healer down, that is one Actigant down. But it's at the cost of your Kyra's assassination skill and very likely life. It's at the cost of Sherry going on cooldown, which kind of gives us Werner free opportunities to do whatever he wants. So yeah, it's nice that the Liana is gone. Right? It's nice that there's less healing on YiQiao's side, that she has to be a little bit more careful with how she uses this flow, with keeping this flow alive now. But at the same time, it was an expensive kill. That was an expensive kill for Zansin to take. Right? Losing this Kyra is going to hurt. Double-bladed strike being back up after the Kyra goes down is going to hurt. Right, now the Werner's in offense stance again, has double strike again, can potentially kill this Helena with it, can almost certainly kill the Sherry with it. Could do a whole bunch of damage to the Christie with it if he so decided. There isn't a buff on the Werner, and it will be a while before there's a buff, right? Still another turn before Landia's buff comes back for the Werner. Killing the Liana means that there's no gospel to give him. So we'll take a little bit of chip here from the Helena. No blood sword procs happening though. YiQiao moving in to take the center, opening up this fort for Werner to take. Right, get himself back on the fort, get himself nice and beefed up there. But do you just go after the Sherry here? Probably not. I imagine having no buff would be scary enough that you don't want to attack the Sherry here. At the same time, though, you do have this fixed damage proc. Oh, you actually can't reach the Sherry. This is a sky tile. My bad. Doesn't look like a sky tile, but it is a sky tile. That's such a weirdly placed sky tile as well. It's like, that's a tile. That's forest. That's grassland. That's sky. Okay, so could not actually hit the Sherry though. So he just sets back up, decides not to go after the Helena. Makes sense. Okay. Game is good. Just getting a little bit of healing on everyone. Does actually burn a flow stack, which means there's not an act again available immediately. Now, the flow can easily just throw out 3C, get act again available. I don't know if you really needed your phalanxes to be all the way topped off there. Helena takes a turn camping out on a fort, which will certainly hurt the Werner's chances of killing her. Faction buff is available again, though. It is a little bit awkward Werner going for this Helena, right? 3C, or double-bladed strike does not have that same class ignore property that 3C has. So the way the animation on this one works is Werner will do his first attack and land into these highlands, probably killing most of them. Then the heavies will do their attacks, and then Werner will do his second set of attacks. So I imagine as long as all the highlands go down to the first attack from Werner and the heavies, that you can kill the Helena afterwards with Werner's second attack here. But if there are highlands still left somehow, then it becomes very awkward. So there's the 3C from Flow. Doesn't get any actual damage off. Right, Helena just heals back. Potentially checking for maybe a soldier defense down would be neat. Get some extra stacks though. Could potentially act again one of these tanks if you wanted to get a guard back up or something. I guess this guard is already here. Goes for the rush though. Is just going to go try and kill this Sherry. Right. At this point, YiQiao is willing to go into endgame with just these 3 units versus these 2. And honestly, you probably don't actually lose your Werner to Helena here. Right? It's a buffless Helena with no skill. There's no Shiv or anything to actually kill the Werner. You're on a forest. You're actually almost certainly fine here. So the Werner just gets to run away after doing this. Landius just barely surviving the Christie once again. Honestly, if Zansin had gone for Higabana transform on this Christie, I believe this Christie burned her last stack last turn. If you had gone for just a Christie solo here, you have the advantage in damage. YiQiao has to attack into you. Double Lancer tanks aren't going to do anything. You have to kill the Werner, or at least be in a place where Werner can't 3-range you for that to work. But that wouldn't have been a terrible plan. It does look like this Landius is going to go down. Yeah, Christie attacking into Hilda will definitely kill the Landius here. So you can kill the Landius. Right. Get rid of one of these tanks. But eventually the Werner's going to reset. Going to kill your Helena. I don't know. Helena might just be able to do enough damage, though, that Zansin wins on damage. Right? Zansin is ahead right now. Actually elects to put full bloom onto the Helena rather than killing the Landius, so he's going to just continue to build up this damage lead by just clicking Shiv, ending turn, right? Just stand in place, click Shiv, AoE, AoE, Blood Sword procs everywhere. End turn after the Shiv, AoE, AoE, Blood Sword procs everywhere. And then on the next turn you have 3C into one of these tanks, AoEs, AoEs, Blood Sword procs everywhere. Right, if you can kill this Werner with that again, then Zansin will take the game if he's able to kill this Werner with all this AoE damage. Helena might just win the game for him again. Does actually attack into the Landius here, trying to pick it up, but not quite enough off of the Highlands. Misses the last Blood Sword to get the kill. Or no, gets the last Blood Sword and doesn't get the kill. So potentially saw the damage on the Werner, figured it wasn't going to be enough if he just ended turn there, and went for killing the Landius instead. But now the Werner is reset, as his act again. Gets to kill your Helena here. That's it, Helena's gone. It's just Christie versus the world now. But the problem is Christie's not in the right position. She needs to be in one of these middle tiles so that Werner can't just 3-range her for free. But now these tanks don't have to hit into her, right? Flo can step down and let Werner step over and start ranged attacking for free. That's how YiQiao can build up a whole lot of damage. Now it still might not be enough damage. Right, YiQiao is 60k behind. Doesn't have that much time left in the game. So it's still gonna be rough killing this Christie. Alright, there's 20k. 20k in almost her first life. But Flo kind of needs to heal herself before she tries to take a life off this Christie. Werner could probably take the life. Werner could definitely take the life here. But then you still have a second one to go through. And this is where Higabana would absolutely win Zansin this game. If this full bloom here was to transform Higabana, then none of these tanks can touch you because they will deal negative damage. The Werner would be scared to touch you, right? The Flo would be scared to touch you because now they can't just sack HP to get some amount of damage on you. They have to be dealing more than 20%, which is actually pretty rough for these units. Right, everyone but the Werner actually kind of struggles to get more than 20% damage onto this Christie. So have Werner go melee, pick up the first life. 2 turns left. 2 turns left for Werner to kill off the Christie. Should be able to pick it up. He should be able to do it since he has the Flo here supporting him. making sure that he doesn't accidentally get counter-killed by Christie or something. I don't think he kills this turn, but he should do enough damage to kill next turn. Yes, he does not kill this turn, but Christie at 7% isn't going to make it another turn. Transforms Cav on the Hilda as well, just to be able to actually deal damage with the Hilda, should the need arise. But at this point, you should be okay. This should be GG for Zansin. YiQiao should be taking the win here. One last full bloom. And then it's time for Werner to finish the job. So there we go. It was a full-on Werner comp, right? Werner 1v5, and he pulled it off. Unit is pretty damn good. And Zansin concedes right at the end there, right before Werner gets the chance to hit him one last time. That will be the end. So YiQiao will move on to the finals. 2-1. What a close game, though. That second game was insane as well. Right, dominating formation, almost turning the game around, letting YiQiao almost take a 2-0 victory there. Came within inches of winning that one. That was a good one. That was definitely a good game. But that is it for this one. So, if you're on YouTube, all the other games that I've casted for TSDL are in a playlist, so you can browse through them if you so desire. And there will be more showing up as they get cast. So check those out, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.